I've never been in a group that is so incredibly unique where every time you're on the train, you will have this awesome conversation. You bond over the differences.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the best MBA podcast in the world, Get to Be School. Very grateful that you're here. This is your host, Drex. I hope things are going well in your world. I hope you're having fun with the people in your corner, and I hope you enjoy this episode. It was a great conversation with Campbell McGavin. He was a connection. He went to high school with my wife. I feel like I just continuously meet people who went to high school with my wife, but he's a great one, and I really appreciated him sharing his thoughts. He's over there at Booth. We razz each other a little bit over that. He gives a great candid look into his decision between Kellogg and Booth. He was accepted to both programs, and he doesn't hold back on why he chose Booth over Kellogg. And I really appreciated that. And I think it's helpful context for anyone considering applying or anyone curious to know, one versus the other. Grateful to him for coming on. Grateful for that insight. Same request as always. Please, if you know anyone who should be on the show or if you should be on the show, please reach out. You know the drill, and you know that it's much appreciated and it really helps the show. Thank you to everyone who's done that. If you think of anyone who might enjoy the show, please send it their way. Most importantly, though, if we can do anything to help on our end, please reach out. The community is only a community if we take care of each other. Hope you're doing well. Hope you have a great week. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now let's get to the good part with Campbell McGavin. Campbell, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be here.
We were chatting a couple times back in the summer, and then good things started to happen for you, and now you're a neighbor. Would you mind introducing yourself a bit to the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give my networking intro story. I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah. I was out of the country for a few years in Mexico doing some religious service. Upon coming back, I got dual degrees in mechanical and software engineering. I think that really helped set me up for a good solid technical foundation. And I've, for the last 5 or 6 years, really focused on the engineering spaces, worked some years in mechanical, and then most recently in software engineering. My most recent company was 1-800-Contacts, where I was a software engineer and built out and maintained software systems that allowed you as an end user to get immediate access to your vision insurance benefits. So kind of a cool way to help people, get more affordable vision care. And then immediately prior to Booth, but within 1-800-Contacts still, I networked into a really cool pre-MBA internship where the company was going through a bit of a minor restructuring and we needed to reduce the size of our R&D department. I helped out with creating some structure and processes to pull product and knowledge from across the pond to our Salt Lake City headquarters, which leads into the direction I want to go, which is consulting.
Okay.
Yeah, it was essentially a little mini consulting project within the company that allowed me to create this transition period between an engineering space to more of a client managing space. It was good.
That sounds very fascinating. As a recipient of your good work at 1-800-Contacts, I'm
Oh,
grateful.
nice.
Yeah, I love that platform. It's a wonderful way to get contacts. Nice job doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, what a fun connection. I had no idea that you were one of our loyal customers. That's good.
Oh, yeah. You have a couple of degrees, my man. It wasn't enough to just get one bachelor's. You have a couple of bachelors. Can you just touch on that really quick?
Yeah, the 2 bachelors in mechanical and software. The idea there was to really get breadth and depth across a good technical foundation, always knowing that I'd hit it home with a master's in business, really get a strong foundation in engineering principles across different industries, and then round that out with the business and soft skills and leadership through the MBA. That was kind of the plan all along.
When did consulting come into the plan?
Yeah, as I was researching in the last year or so, some of the major MBA outcomes, I guess context, depending on your school in an MBA, there are major recruiting outcomes. That might be consulting, that might be investment banking, that might be entrepreneurship, financial services positions. And I think mine was a process of elimination of how much am I willing to sacrifice work-life balance for career opportunity. Consulting was a really good medium ground that it's going to be a stressful, somewhat of a sacrifice for at least the next 2 years, if not more, but it had a good balance with life. There were other opportunities that I won't name that, were a considerable number of hours more every week that I kind of chopped off there. So, I had a few target opportunities, and I think consulting for me was a really good path forward. I'm actually recruiting for that right now. But the idea was, you get so many reps across different industries, different business models, you'll start to see patterns where and how businesses are failing and things that are done to optimize, which then creates this really transferable skill set for you to, work your way into industry and become what I hope to be, an effective executive that is able to, regardless of the situation, be planted into the problem and know exactly how to move forward.
Okay, this is making sense. I want to double click though and make sure that I'm understanding the journey correctly.
Yeah.
You lay your groundwork technologically. You get the software and the mechanical engineering, but you said you knew that you were going to get an MBA. However, you didn't know that consulting was your path until you started researching the MBA. What I'm trying to get at is, what are you prepping for? Sometimes the path is, I want to go into consulting. A great way to get there is to get an MBA, but you're kind of thinking a little bit even longer term, it seems. What's kind of your goal?
The current end goal is, at least 3 to 5 years in one of the awesome consulting companies that comes to recruit at Booth. And I would say that is somewhat of an end goal through the MBA. Without this, the doors, the opportunities probably wouldn't be available. Long term, I think probably 2 branches that I'm interested in. Long term, I think social impact is really cool. Maybe getting into the ed tech space and trying to provide educational opportunities to other parts of the world that are less fortunate. That's kind of the dreamer goal. And then on more of the standard career path as well. I think, because I have such a substantial background in technical experience, I wouldn't want to lose that. But also, using what I hope to be the skill set from consulting that I'll gain in the next few years, that allows you to function as this, well-equipped business executive, ideally in the tech space. As you look further and further forward into your career, I think those goals tend to become more directional and less specific. But I think we have a solid direction forward.
I actually really like that. More directional and less specific. That's maybe perhaps what I'm feeling. I just haven't been able to put that on paper. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
All right, let's pivot to actually getting to business school. Talk the listeners through your journey. In my memory, the story is you took half of the GMAT and scored a perfect score because that's how smart you are. So talk the listeners, correct me where I'm wrong, but what happened?
Of course. I guess since you pointed that, I'm happy to give specifics that I think helped me get in through the gate. I would say my journey started probably a year and a half before applications were due. Let's say that was not this September, but the September before. That's a rough due date gauge. I would say probably 3 phases.
Okay.
Phase 1 was concept and direction. Phase 2 was studying for the test. And then phase 3 was applications. I think in phase 1, conceptualizing, trying to figure out, how an MBA would be useful to me, which programs would be of interest, and then trying to ensure and tailor the experiences that I was acquiring in industry and in my life in general to fit a competitive and well-rounded candidate. So that was phase 1. Phase 2, honestly, was probably the roughest. I think I spent 6 or 7 months just studying for it. It was the GRE, not the GMAT. The first 5.5 months, it was rough. I probably put in 20 hours a week, if not more. And that's, on top of working full time and other obligations. I'm happy to go into specifics. And then I took the test twice. The first time I got a very average score. I think it was about a 75th percentile, which is very much not competitive. Maybe even a 70th. And the test is split between quant and English or grammar type stuff. Verbal is how they call it. I took the test once, not a competitive score. And then on the second time, I finished the test and I was confused. I saw for the math score, it was 170 out of 100. No, 140 out of 140, right? Geez, it's been a while. No, it's 170 out of 170, right?
I blocked it out of my mind. I can't tell you.
It is. Yeah. A perfect score on each is 170 and 170. So I was confused at the score because I happened to land a 170 on the quantitative and then a 163 on verbal, which for intents and purposes, it's a competitive score. It still wasn't perfect because of the verbal, but I think that was a key segment that helped distinguish myself as a competitive candidate.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, of course.
You offered to go into specifics. I actually would love to know how you increased your score that much.
Yeah. Okay. I would say the 2 practice problem mechanisms that I used were Magoosh. I think that membership is it's less than $200. It's fairly reasonable. And then the 5-pound GRE book. I don't remember what publisher that is, but that'll come up.
It's like a yellow book.
I think it's red, but yeah, GRE 5-pound book. That should be plenty to get you there. And yeah, the first segment was just lots and lots of drills. So working, the geometry math problems over and over again, or the fill in the 2 words problems. That got me to a good baseline. And then I started taking practice tests. I think Magoosh, as well as the other one were good. I kind of got a baseline for where I was at, what type of problems I needed to improve on, go back to drills, really pounding this type of specific problem. And then the last month, it was really helpful. The GRE has these specific prototype tests that are identical to the real thing where they grade you. I think you do pay for those, but that was really helpful in establishing a baseline and rounding out to get that last, 5 to 10% of performance.
Awesome. I think it's just helpful because you can go and take that first test and then just kind of anchor yourself to that and get discouraged if it doesn't go well. All right. I interrupted you though. Sorry. Keep going. So you take the test, get a darn near perfect score.
Thank you.
And then what happens?
Yeah. So that concludes phase 2, which honestly felt like a standstill. It's so nice to get that over with. Phase 3 was apps. I think the question that comes to mind is whether or not to use what do they call themselves? Admission
advisor, admission coach.
Advisor, coach.
Admission
yeah.
coach.
I honestly, for me, I think I would definitely recommend it, at least in the conceptual phase of how to structure and brand yourself.
Gotcha.
Let's back out maybe one step.
Okay.
I think step 1, I had to figure out which schools I was applying to. So I devised a list. We have the M7, the top 7 business schools that continuously get into those slots. I chose 5 of them. And so I had my target direction and kind of got an idea of what the requirements were. I did partner with an admissions consultant from Leland. I guess that's a soft promotion for them. Their rates were better and it seemed that their quality was pretty identical. I had an awesome experience with Carla Magana Figueroa. And so if anyone's listening to this, 10 out of 10 recommend. Yes, she was great. So, and no, that was not paid. I had a really great experience with her and I'd recommend her to anyone. And if I had to criticize the admissions consulting process, I think the concept and strategy phases were phenomenal. And I would say required to help me position myself and, all of these disparate points that represent my life, tightening it into this arc and story that all gives this nice trajectory towards this pivotal moment, which is deciding to go to MBA school. I think that was really helpful for that segment. And then as far as essays, I think it was helpful for the direction. I would say once you have your story in a given essay, you could probably rely on friends and family and then your favorite AI tool to round out the specifics of the essays. I'm not recommending have it write for yourself in chat or whichever one you use,
right?
But getting advice on how to tighten sentences and make it more cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the apps phase. And then I, clicked submit on all 5 of them, got rejections from 3 out of 5 without interview. And then for both of the Chicago schools, Kellogg and Booth, I got interview invites. Felt very fortunate for that opportunity.
That's
huge.
And
then, about a month and a half later, I got an early Christmas present of being accepted at both schools. So again, felt very fortunate there. As far as why I elected Booth over Kellogg, I'll be very diplomatic here.
You regret
but
it.
Also, say what?
You regret it, right? Just kidding.
We have a little bias from our host. I think we have that fun rivalry going. I had really positive experiences with the various student communities. So lots of networking with students and asking for coffee chats, virtual calls before submitting applications. So kind of checkbox on the student community. Academics are going to be nearly identical. Recruiting outcomes are, the employment reports are for all sakes identical. I think the 2 components that sold me after being accepted, I had an amazing experience at the Booth first day. Every school has their admit weekend where they essentially wine and dine you. The tables have turned from I as a candidate, I'm trying to sell you as a school to we as a school know you probably have other offers, so we're trying to sell you on why you should come here. I generally think Booth did more than edging out Kellogg, and it was the funnest weekend I'd had in a long time. Students were very friendly. Kellogg was great, and I did make some friends, but it felt a little bit more tame.
Well, and why? Double click there. What was so fun? Tell the listeners what Booth, and maybe this can kind of lead into what makes Booth so great for you.
Yeah, I think they just did a really good job of engaging the students in this realistic simulation of what student social life is, and they just swarmed you with all these activities with the current students as well. So I had a 3-day weekend of nonstop activities, both social and academic, and they brought us into the classroom and gave us an example lecture. I think Kellogg was similar. It just felt like lower energy. I don't want to say, the main driver was fun, but the experience just felt like much more, they wanted to thrust you into the moment, where
Yeah.
Kellogg felt more like an informational session.
That's
Okay.
so great.
That was one selling point. The other one was, without going into specific numbers, Booth's financial offering was much more competitive than Kellogg's.
That'll help.
So yeah, Kellogg, I don't know why, but it seemed like Kellogg's pot of cash was a little bit smaller than Booth's. Like, I tried to negotiate, like match or beat, but Kellogg was, I don't want to say stingy, had some level
You
of
can say
limitations there.
stingy. I'll say stingy, dang it.
I think that kind of sealed the deal and made the financials much more reasonable at Booth. So I politely declined my offer at Kellogg and accepted at Booth, and haven't looked back. It's been a great experience.
I would just love to know 2 takeaways, 2 last thoughts, your favorite part about being at Booth now. And if it's the same kind of themes that you picked up on in the opening weekend, that's great. And what piece of advice do you have for the listeners?
The first question, that's easy. Favorite part about being at Booth. And I would suspect this is any top business school. There's nothing quite like it in this idea of diversity. And I mean, that's all the cliche terms, but also an incredible universe with so many different axes of humanity. So we have race and country and religion and sexual orientation and military, non-military, all these different career backgrounds. Just so many different axes are so well represented. I've never been in a group that is so incredibly unique, where every time you're on the train, you will have this awesome conversation with someone from a different country who speaks different languages, all these differences, but you bond over the differences, and everyone is operating at such a high level of emotional intelligence that you can have difficult conversations and connect in non-traditional topics, because you're operating that high EQ with the shared love for difference. And then your last question was my recommendation for listeners.
Yep, just a piece of advice you're giving away for free.
Let's focus on the application phase. You're playing a game. The game has rules. Figure out the rules to optimize your profile. And those rules could be distinct from school to school. I think you want to inject full authenticity and genuineness, but also optimize and playing to your strengths given what they're looking for. And I think that's for you as a listener to determine what those rules are. I think that'll be my homework assignment.
Beautifully said, candid, yet a little bit of behind the curtain stuff there. But it's so true. I like that. I like everything you said, but that's a really fun thing to end on. So Campbell, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course, absolutely. And then I have a dog to keep me company, so it's been nice.
You brought a little puppy out there?
Yes, he's currently mad at me because he's in his cage. Well, whenever there's a coffee chat or a networking event, in he goes, and then he comes out after.